look at the irony of that. Like, this is an industry that has millions. Every company is coming to Kenya and Africa to get our content, to get our music. I get people who write to me, and sometimes you look at the contracts and they are so shitty. Pardon my French. Yeah. And because of our poverty, you see, we are gifted, and that's the thing I tell artists. When someone tells me, Vivian, I want to be a good artist, fantastic, but work on your heart, work on your character. Because your gift will only get you as far as your character can sustain you.
Yes,
no further.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Vivian, and welcome once again to the Art, Heart and Heart podcast. As always, it is a pleasure to have you. So please come on in and join us as we have yet another conversation. Hot topics only. I'm joined by my co-host, the lovely, ever lovely, so gracious. Yani this chick, for as long as I've known her, anakuanga tu na vibes zingine tu za kufanya u feel calm all the time. Pastor Lydia Ngina is right here, and of course she's gonna introduce herself and tell you guys about herself.
Hi guys, so my name is Lydia Ngina. I am a pastor, an author, but I also consider myself to be a midwife of ideas and people, an encourager and an optimist. So I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. So today we're going to talk about something interesting. Okay, it's always interesting. And we're talking about the role of God in entertainment.
Right.
As in, there's so much to unpack in that space.
Yeah.
Because no entertainer, in fact, one of the reasons we are discouraged to get into entertainment is because hiyo ni kazi ya shetani.
You know?
But then you wonder, growing up, you have these gifts. You can sing, you're creative, you like talking, you like expressing yourself, you like dancing, especially dancing. And to think that right now TikTok is the in thing, and there's a time you couldn't even dance. In fact, I think when that started in church, the contemporary dancing, though the Catholic, people could dance here and there, but it was like it had to be organized, it had to be, it had its margins.
To be contained.
Thank you. So just getting right into it. Of course, I've been an entertainer for many years.
Yeah.
And for 8 years, actually. And I have performed in big stages, smaller crowds, in Kenya, outside of Kenya. And getting into entertainment for me, I feel like was a form of rebellion.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I also wanted to show that I can do it. Yeah. So there are traits that I had that were good. So it's like you have a certain courage, you have resilience, you're able to record the music in the studio, you're able to do collaborations, you're able to, of course, at that time, when I was working with my manager, he has also that strong and courageous persona. So he'd really, push it into me. And I liked what I built at that time. But just getting and circling back into the role of God, why were we predisposed to believe that God is not in entertainment, or what do we view as entertainment? Is it like because when you say entertainment, people automatically go into Hollywood movies and and it's like when God in entertainment is worship.
My God,
praise and worship. And hizi unapenda wimbo za shetani, especially uko kwa dunia.
Oh my God.
So please demystify that for us, because when I started, you automatically reject yourself. Yes. Because you feel like sasa wewe ushaingia kwa world, so mbaya
twendete
tuharibu hiki.
Yeah,
wacha nivae shorts kabisa, kama mnaongea muongee sasa vizuri.
Yeah.
So how what was ingrained in our minds, and why is it that entertainment is not aligned with who God is?
I think it's our teachings, so to speak, and how we've been socialized around it, and not accepting the fullness of who God is. There's this space where He's creative. Joy is part of God's. He says the joy of the Lord is our strength. You know? So there's a way joy would look like, and I think it's also the courage to not to be different in that space and embrace this thing. Of course, you're going to have a backlash. And I think about it's the whole thing. Like you are an artist, but you couldn't fit into this space because it was very mutaratara, very contained. There's a way you have to behave. And the entertainment culture requires that you find a very, so to speak, an expression that is outside of what is accepted in society. So I think a lot of it is our socialization around church and how we have received it, how we've accepted it. But I also think there's now a rebranding that is happening, even with God. The whole idea of now having pop stars who are now godly and have embraced creativity and the expression of creativity. Let me just say the expression of creativity in that space. I didn't consider myself a creative being, man. Me creative, those were like two different people. You have
a book.
Imagine here I am,
and you look so gorgeous on that cover.
Here I am. I could not believe it. I could not reconcile it. So it took a lot of unlearning,
right,
to really embrace it and accept it and say, okay, you know what, this is the accept the you may not like it. You talk, I mean, yeah, you get that backlash, but you just embracing it because you know you're actually now breaking the pattern that was there to now begin building a pattern of a healthy pattern around music. Because what we've experienced in the culture of music culture is a perversion of it.
Right.
The sex, the ugliness, the the drugs, the derailment, the carelessness, so to speak. And all that is perversion, and it's humans who, just, and ideally, a lot of people, if you ask them, they're moving from, they're using music as a place of rebellion. I'm rebelling.
Yes.
And that, the thing is now music and art gives you that freedom to rebel.
Yes.
It allows you, you're allowed to rebel. And so, you just go do the thing. But then how does that look like in a space where you're not necessarily rebelling, but you understand your assignment now?
Right.
You understand your assignment in this space. You are called to this space. You understand your assignment. Then that's a very different approach.
Right.
So I see it as that, but also the need to see a healthy pattern and a healthy model of being in this space that has been demonized so much, both by our culture, our churches and pastors. And a lot has been said about this space that is very scary and very, I don't want to get into. But then how do you now come into this space and begin to unpack it and find the balance, find the healthy balance about it, using it to not just self-destruct or self-glorify, but to bring in an aspect of the greatness of God, the Spirit of God, the joy, the meaning, that it has meaning now. There's meaning to it. Your entertainment has meaning. It has an assignment.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's a lot of reframing.
Right.
But more than reframing, we also need to see models. I mean, what does that look like?
Right.
We need to see models because that's what we do. I mean, we as humans, we operate through imagery.
Right.
And I guess that's part of the power of this entertainment space. They use a lot of imagery.
Right.
Imagery of whatever. So the imagery then begins to speak to us, and now it helps us gives us a picture of what that would look like. So you operate from that picture. So now imagine coming in this space and having the aspect of redemption.
Right.
And you begin to create imagery that is speaking redemption and hope and courage and wholesomeness and meaning, depth, joy.
The depth.
Yeah. Joy. As opposed to just becoming because that world can swallow you. I mean, it will really. If
not even it can.
Yeah.
I mean the media and entertainment space, because I've been exposed to both, is centered with a lot of toxic traits. Yeah. Let me give an example. Like when I was starting, I remember when I went into studio with my first song, and it was it's a song about inspiration. It's about a dream.
Actually love it.
Yeah.
I've told you that before.
I now have wings to fly. And when I went to studio with that song, my producer was like, this song, it can't cut for this market. And I was like, but this is a song that I feel I need to sing, right? You see, instinctively, probably it's also good to realize that God is really in us. And even when you're not aware, he's still using you through your gift.
Yes.
Because at that time, obviously, knowing God ilikuwa ile God tu ya church. Unajua, si ati naeza enda niambie God, by the way, God, just personal.
Yeah.
Unajua, like nataka hivi, ama hii story mbona ilifanyika hivi. And just understanding the principalities about how God works and who God is.
Yeah.
Because God is ideally love.
Yes.
But because there's been a lot of noise and we are in a culture of distraction.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not proactive about what you want to observe, to absorb, you will be distracted, for sure. Even for me, and I believe I'm fairly disciplined in it, I will sometimes get lost in the scrolling, and then 2 minutes later, I'm like, I was not here. What was I doing? And I have to be very alert, So this is me who's aware. So you would imagine someone who's not aware of it, yeah? And just now circling back to the real question of why, like, for entertainers, yeah? Most entertainers are deeply spiritual. Yeah? Because music has an innate power. It's very, it speaks for itself. Yeah. And people are, like, for example, for me, when I meet people will tell me, hey, your song yako, your time nilikuwa na break up. Wow. Your time. So it's people attach music to their life experiences. Yes. And so that gives it a lot of power. Yeah. But now for that girl who's trying to get into entertainment, like for when Vivian was trying to get into entertainment, and she's going into the studio and she's being told, do this or sing like this, or now you need to wear this in other people for people to like you, and you need to. And it's funny because I have always had the image of that musician, but it was not what was inside my heart. What was inside my heart was I just needed people to hear my music. I didn't want to become famous. So I laugh when people DM me and say, I want to become famous.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes.
When you become popular, I heard somewhere, when you're famous, you can become infamous.
Absolutely.
But you can never stop really being famous. Right? Especially with Google. And so there's no taking it back. There's what you surrender in order to have that, because there are spaces you might not be able to get to walk into, like if you there's a freedom that is because of, and that's why you find people who are famous living in ranches or whatever, because they want to have their own space. And with the creative space right now in Kenya, now as I get to the question is how can we be able to encourage creatives to not be shy about having that personal relationship with God? Because the fear of many is they will lose popularity. I don't know, maybe they think God is boring. How do we start demystifying that space, even as we have more and more, because we are a very creative country.
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
we have more comedians, more musicians, more dancers. How do we talk about that in a way that is, like, is it okay as a musician if I wear a bodysuit and go on stage? Is it okay as a dancer if I wear a tank top and a short, and because I'm a TikToker, that's what I do, where is God there?
Yeah. And I think that begins with the question of self-identity.
Right.
The culture is there, but then what is your assignment in that space? So it's a more of self-discovery. I think I would encourage someone, sit down and discover what's your voice. What does your voice represent in this space? Because let's establish first that God is interested in the entertainment space.
Yes.
Very interested in it.
Right.
But for God to manifest in that space, he requires a human body, a human being who will collaborate with him. So there's that, and that's why the value of personal relationship is important, because what you're doing is you're collaborating with him in prayer, in surrendering, in listening, in waiting. You're collaborating with him, And then as you're collaborating with, as you're listening and growing, then you begin to unpack your assignment in that space. Because if your assignment is just to be famous, that thing will come back and it will bite you in your hiney, because it's
so toxic.
yeah.
I mean, we've seen them, the one hit wonders. Yeah. And that will do something to your brain.
Mess, yeah.
Because even people will tease you about it and say, wesi karibu ulikuwa unajulikana, ona vile, and we see them like, I don't know, I don't want to use that example, but it's good if I use it. You remember that guy who sang that Taka Taka song? You guys remember that song? Taka 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 something. Don't even sing it correctly. Well, they'll play it. But people, and we have sensations now.
Yes.
We have sensations.
Trends.
Yeah, we have sensations. You come out, you become a sensation.
Yeah.
And when you're sensational, there's a lot of confusion that comes with that sensation. And because how we are socialized, and that's why I asked, how would you tell someone who's getting into that space? Because that's where it starts. Because the ideal is, when people know you, you're going to make money. And because our culture, everyone is about the mula.
Yes.
So mse anataka kutengeneza do. Lakini hafikiri that money is probably a byproduct.
Yes.
That's too complex thinking. Nifanye hii kitu, nivae shorts, nitoe song yenye nafanya vitu zenye nafanya, mi dozi nifikie. But it doesn't work like that. No. In fact, yani money is spiritual in ways over and above our thinking.
And even money follows value. What value are you bringing to the table? Money won't come because, money actually follows value, and it's exchanged on the tables of value.
Yeah.
You bring value, I bring value, and that's how we trade. So even as a musician, your craft has to have meaning.
Yes.
And even craft, you have to sit down and craft a song properly. You don't just write a song that 2 years, you think through, because ideally what you're showing us is your philosophy. You're sharing with the world your thinking and where you're at, your experiences, which are good.
Right.
But there are experiences that you can write that will completely outlive you. And I think we're having this discussion about being timeless before.
Yes.
So as opposed to being a sensational, and even when you become a sensational, if you want to, then you begin with the inner working. And we have to go back to that place of, circle back to the place of personal responsibility. Where you work, you intentionally work, because I honestly believe the transformation of a society or the betterment of a community or even the entertainment space begins with personal personal transformation. And I think that's where the whole thing is. God will begin by understanding that there's need for personal transformation, and then that personal transformation seeps into your space of influence. Now the space of influence is in the entertainment space. You go in there and you begin to see what am I supposed to, what is my music supposed to be responding to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even as you say that, what's coming to my mind is thinking about why so many of us get into entertainment. And I'll be very honest with you, Lydia. I think there's a lot of darkness in the entertainment space.
Oh, for sure.
And that was one of my main reasons of wanting to do this podcast. And even when I started as a musician, I was always I would always stick out, because I would always question, and I was always trying to find the truth. And even my own journey through my own music, I've done all kinds of music. I have a few gospel songs. Though right now I'm rebranding as regards my music based on how I feel the world is operating. I feel like instead of the pain lessening, the pain is getting... It's accentuating, and I don't know if it's because people we don't know, and we don't know that we don't know. So we think, if I get this car, if I get this guy,
there's a measure of ignorance.
If I'm able to have this kind of picture, if I'm able to get this number of likes, if I get this deal, if I, it's measured on something,
the external success,
that you want to achieve, and it's very easy even to be misinterpreted, for people to say, Vivian sahi wewe kuimba tu, utaki kuimba ndio maana, but you have to be very aware to make sure that your thoughts, the only approval that you need is God's approval, given, right? So for that space and for us as entertainers and the darkness in that space, the situation there is getting worse.
Yes.
Things are getting worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes when I look at creatives, yeah, even for this podcast, anytime I have to call a musician, I feel headache because they have a sense of entitlement. They're not easy to communicate with, they don't keep their word.
And I think that's even a good measure. Who are you becoming?
Right.
That's a good measure to pause and pull back. Who are you becoming? Yes, you're gifted, you're in the entertainment space.
Yeah.
But do you like who you're becoming? Do you like the person you look in the mirror and look at and say, oh, okay. Do you enjoy that person? Are you content? Are you, who are you?
Right.
Because it's also a question of identity at the same time. It's also a question of who am I? What am I? Those questions are important to begin to even consider.
Yeah.
Not consider seeking an answer, because if you don't like who you are, then there's something wrong with that space or where you're at that you need to pull back and think through, because the darkness is spread by humans. It's not God, it's not the demon, it's just humans.
Yeah.
Who choose to collaborate and use self-centeredness and desire and perversion that comes. It's spread through humans. Gossip is spread through humans. Malice is spread through humans.
Yeah.
We have to remember it's humans who are in that industry. So as humans, then you also have the capacity to spread darkness or light or just God's glory and God's goodness. So it's what you choose at the end of the day and what you choose to steward, how you steward it.
And especially, I think, the competitive culture of the entertainment space, which is very toxic. So you find that people in entertainment, they can know each other, but they act like they don't know each other. Yeah. And then now add the greed.
Oof.
And
the lust.
And just the general malignment of how that space operates. And when I think about it, the biggest irony of entertainment, especially music is a multi-billion industry.
Yep.
But most musicians are poor, bankrupt.
Yeah.
So look at the irony of that. Like, this is an industry that has millions. Every company is coming to Kenya and Africa to get our content, to get our music. I get people who write to me, and sometimes you look at the contracts and they are so shitty. Pardon my French. Yeah. And because of our poverty, you see, we are gifted. And that's the thing I tell artists. When someone tells me, Vivian, I want to be a good artist, fantastic. But work on your heart, work on your character. Because your gift will only get you as far as your character can sustain you.
Yes,
no further.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
And so when I look at that, I feel so sad, because we have two most popular caliber of artists. The ones who morph into either production roles or management roles, or the other strategy roles, label, whatever, a label, a studio label.
Yeah.
And so those ones, they make their money, but mostly through greed. So they take advantage of others.
Yeah.
Then we have another group which is driven by drugs and alcohol and sex. And I will be very direct and say it also applies to gospel artists.
It does, yeah.
Yeah? Because their heart has not been transformed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what,
Yeah. So they feel like, hey, me, I'm seeing Burna Boy has millions. Even me, I want to have those millions. Yeah. So they move away from spreading and teaching people about who God is. And so now we have the greedy ones. So this guy is driving, whatever he's driving is rich, is whatever, but his money is not legit. Yeah. So anakuwa na poverty in other areas. Yeah. Because you see, yani, misery loves company.
Yes.
So when you have your greed, also all the bad things come with that. Then the other one now, who has lost things because akipata do inaisha yote. I was telling someone, I've done shows where we're paid immediately after a show. Maybe we're paid, maybe flight 8 week the next day, jioni, ama something, or even 2 o'clock. Even in the morning, this person goes and sererekas and finishes all their cash. So, mkifika Nairobi anakuambia, ebu nisaidie edo ya Uber. Mulilipua pamoja.
Yeah.
And I hate that because it makes us so poor as an industry. And so even as our children, those of us who have kids, as they grow, when you think about what the music industry is, and I have discussions with people who've been in the industry for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's the same cycle. And I wonder, why is it so difficult to reform that space?
As you said, it goes back to the heart. And what you're seeking for. Yeah, so there's this idea of, you have spiritual maturity and a grounded artist who then is able to come and feed people, because what you're feeding people is your ideology. Whether you sell ideology, that's a trade of music. When you craft, you're crafting your ideology and you're selling it to people, and that's what they're consuming.
Right.
And that consuming is what is producing all this madness that we are seeing around the world. So the idea is I would encourage one to sit and figure out who they are, and then begin to craft things that edify and even bring the essence of reconciliation, healing, redemption. Because even that space needs redemption.
More fire.
Yeah, that place as well needs redemption.
A whole lorry.
Christ did die for that space.
A whole lorry at GSU.
Yeah,
redemption.
Yeah, and he's going to use people. He's not going to come himself. He's going to use people. So that people means that you sit out first, reframe and think and get deep into the Word of God, and then now use your craft to speak into that space.
Right.
So, yeah.
What you've said, especially that point of sit with yourself. Firstly, as an African culture, if you're found sitting with yourself, nini mbaya na wewe unakaa peke yako? Hupendi watu? Kwa hii familia watu wanapendanga watu.
I know. I hear you.
You're already being sentenced to criminology because of that. And so that culture, of course, because we are a very intimately social culture. And it's not bad, but there is a lot of room for self-discovery, because it is only when you do that self-discovery that you're able to know, okay, so this is where I align, and this is where I align, and this is, in fact, they all just start coming into your path because you're walking in the right direction. And there are two things we've spoken about off camera. I'll start with the most recent one. So one of the producers, he's called John, he was saying, it's the idea of what is sold. Yeah, when you're getting into entertainment, even an example of maybe big African stars like Burna Boy. So we see their life through it's been sifted.
Yes.
Yeah. So tunaona mapicha, tunaona mabling, tunaona ako London, ako wapi, but we don't really get to understand the details of how that space is.
Yeah.
Whereby, and probably sometimes we're not saying what he's doing is bad. It is, he has attained a measure of success that is global.
Yeah.
For an African artist, that's huge.
Yeah.
And even now, American artists all over are looking to work with him because of that thing that he's been able to achieve. But it's important to understand, do you want that life? Yeah. And just to be really honest with yourself. Yeah. And I was saying, when you get into the music space as a musician, by the time I was getting in, it was about the producer. Yeah. So the producer has this image. Pengine, producers are introverts, so maybe alikaa akasema mimi mademu watanipenda juu mimi ni producer. So for him, it's an avenue for him to get chicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're jumping onto his vision. And his vision is it's a carnal vision, and it's not fulfilling, and it doesn't have a lifeline. Unajua, because John is funny. He said, well, you have a dark chick, sijui short and plump, nini curvy, sijui apple figure, pear, but but all in all, you realize it's just the same script. Yeah. So it's really about trying to understand who are you beyond how you appear.
Yeah.
And the music space has been marred by deception. You know, because you're like, hey, I'm saying I get madam. And it's all also tied into the fact that we don't know who we are.
Yeah.
And as a culture, I know we've been socialized to belong, you know. I need to belong. I need to have a charmer. I need to have a what? I need to have 10 friends in order to be valid. I need to excuse. You can be fast. You need to be your own friend. You know, this is something.
Yes.
Yeah, this is something very deep for me because I had to unlearn it. And let me tell you, please don't learn it. Because when you unlearn it, you'll feel like you're dying. It's so painful. Yeah. Because you're realizing, I thought I needed people. Number one, you first need to discover what you're meant to be doing with your life and yourself.
Yeah.
And you need to know about yourself. You need to understand, okay, what are some of my belief systems? Where did I pick them from? Was it in school? Was it my family? Was it, you know? And all these things ultimately drive the careers and the spaces that we walk into and we choose. And people don't want to get into these conversations. Lakini, the bad thing about that is that ultimately, people are in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And that's why now the heights of depression, because it's an emptiness.
Yeah.
You meet someone who's rich, but they're searching. Searching for fulfillment.
Yeah.
And people will say that's an old person thing. No. Your life can be valuable. I'll give an example. Maybe I don't know so much about it, but I don't think the Bible says this is for people when they're in their 30s. Self-control and love is for people. When you get into your 30s now, you start needing this.
Nope.
This is who you are and this is your reputation and this is your lifeline. And this moment that you're in and the space that you're living in, it cannot be, you'll never get it again. So how you wake up and how you choose actively to live your life is very important.
Yeah.
And especially for the entertainment, because there's a lot of deception. In fact, some of the people who say they are loneliest are entertainers. Look at that.
Yeah.
You're
That's
constantly crazy. With stylists and with what. And so why, you know, why is that happening? And if you look at it, yani unaona, it's an emptiness, you know? And I don't know, maybe just from your own perception, because you're very good at teaching people about self-awareness and identity, is how can we inspire our young people as they're getting into entertainment to do it, yani their heart posture for it to be right. Yeah. For it not to be about chicks and about, because you have the rest of your life ahead of you. And many people, you know, there is a way, if you're used to living your life in a certain way for 10 years, for you to change that. So if you are ukitoka show unachukua dem unaenda na yeye, next time ukienda hivi, if you do that for years and years and years, you can imagine trying to undo that. It becomes very difficult. And that's why entertainers constantly struggle. Even for me, one day I'll tell people about my transformation. It had to be rough. It's still rough. But I had a conviction. And I said, you know what? Even initially, being known is good. And that's why we are here. And that's why we're able to talk. And that's why people are able to listen to us. Because I was like, why did I get into this space at the first place? Because it's like when you go to the church, where una promote, when you go to the ground, where you're not too, autoshi mboga, you're not second. And I realized I have to figure this thing out for me. Because it is my life and it is my purpose and it is my well-being, you know? And so me being part of that era in thinking, being part of that space, how would you lead people into a space whereby when they get into entertainment, they get on the right path?
Number one, motivation. What's your motivation? What do you want? What are you looking for? Are you seeking for that lifestyle that has been sold to you by the imagery of that space? You know, styling, and you see it and you want it. That's what you're seeking for. Or do you understand the weight and the responsibility that comes with just being in that space? There's a lot of weight and responsibility that comes into that space. So I think it's a question where ujita kamukutano and sit with yourself and figure out before you go into this jita kamkutano, sit with yourself and figure out some of these things. But also, what are your strengths really? What are you, and then the relationships as well you surround yourself outside of the entertainment space, because relationships are critical. People who see you for who you are, they don't just see the superstar and are completely enamored by that. They see you, you're able to be intimate with them, and they give you room to be yourself without judgment. They give you room to be yourself so that then at some point that authenticity will filter into your music, will filter into how you show up, will filter into the quality of work that you bring to the table, and eventually over time. So there's the idea of as well patience. I think sometimes we forget, and I think it's important to remind people, even spiritually speaking, the Bible says it is faith plus patience. That's how you inherit the promises of God. So there's that place of being patient with yourself, being patient with your ideas. If you want to be a sensation, then there's room for that. You can do something stupid or something and it will become. But if you want to have meaning in that space, there's a place where you need to just be patient. Sit, dig deep, just sit there. Uncover some things. Unpack. Even your own gift. It takes a lifetime to uncover your gift, because we are so dynamic. We are so dynamic as individuals. You can't cluster yourself and say, I'm only a musician. No, there are aspects in you that even this music, you're growing. Even if you think about your own journey, the first song you sang and what now you're beginning to sing, or you're singing now, it's very different, because it actually tells us, it's a what footprint of your path, of your journey of transformation. You can trace and say, oh, this is how she was in her 20s when she came into the industry, and now that she's in her 30s, it's evolving. You're beginning to, because it's a trail of your journey as well.
And I'll say also two things in that accord. I think people think that believers are weak. You know, it's like, if you love God, you must be weak. But for sure, loving God is not for sissies.
No. Oh.
As in, if you're
my God.
If you're moved by what people think, you cannot love God. If you're moved by, because here is what happens. It's like, even basic things. Let's talk about self-control. Earlier, we were talking about, we've discussed it before in this show, kuoga na kurudi soko. So that requires a level of self-control, where you're able to say, I am used to being with someone, but I choose for this season to be alone. And everyone in your circle will tell you, we utaki wambodi, unataka tu kukaa peke yako hivyo. This, and then now they bring in, we were not built to be alone. So they pick what's in the Bible based on, but understanding the connection between your mind and who God is, because it is God who directly influences what is in your mind. And it's a struggle, because if you grew up thinking, I have to do this to be loved, a lot of entertainers do that. They're people pleasers, because it's easy for people to define you. Because like right now, and we have these discussions as artists, your brand, and there's a day I said, excuse me, if you want to tell me about my brand, you build your brand. Because it can tie you inside a circle over there, whereby you can't explore other aspects of yourself, because you're trying to protect something that is even invisible, according to me, And so in that aspect, looking at it, I'm like, number one, loving God is not for weak people. I can tell you for a fact, a lot of the courage that I have, because I was just I do self-assessment, guys. Mimi niko tu space ingine yangu. So when
and the Bible does encourage us to do to examine yourself. Sit and examine yourself. Where are you at?
Ile kujita mkutano.
Examine where you're at.
Exactly. So nikijita mkutano, I'm like, okay, what do I want to explore now? Right? Who am I in this season? What am I leaning into? Am I willing to let go of some old relationships? Because am I only in relationships where I give, but I don't have anyone who's giving? Do the people around me, do they honestly care about me, or do they only love what I have? And what
the packs you bring.
The packs I bring. And I had to be so, yani specific about this thing. And it was a tough decision because there are spaces I had to walk away from. And you miss these spaces, not that you don't, because ulikoshazoea, we are habitual creatures. But you have to realize that for you to get to a certain level in life, there are things you have to shed. That's a given.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know. And I like to encourage artists, even musicians. If you're a musician out there and you're probably in the creative space, because I think probably everyone who's a musician has heard of me or knows me or whatever. So I've walked this path.
Yeah.
And even as we continue and probably conclude, what I would say is, when we are talking about finding God in entertainment, we are not trying to say that there are certain things that qualify you. No. In fact, it's never about your works. Those ones are just additions, because maybe you have the information and you can spread it, and it's a principle that if you have good information, to just put it out there. So I think, Pastor El, even as we conclude on this topic of where is God in entertainment, or what is God's role in entertainment, the role of God in entertainment, perhaps because of how I am positioned in the music space, and I get to meet a lot of musicians, and I've been in this space for a minute. I think musicians need to be confident in regards to knowing God on a personal level, and believing and trusting that when they set out on that journey, God will continue to open doors in that accord. And I believe we also need to be teachable. Musicians have a habit whereby, and they defend it. They say, this is music. It's sensitive to me. It's what... Scrap that. If you're gifted as a musician, well and good, congratulations. However, you don't know everything. So we need to have a space whereby we're also teachable, so that whatever it is that we are hoping to achieve, because there's no huge vision that you will achieve individually. And musicians have this thing that, I'm the face, I'm the artist, because I've been there, I know. And it's not okay, because then it becomes very difficult even for someone to tell you uko na sukuma wiki kwa meno, because you're not approachable in any way. So let's have a culture of etching into more godly character. It sounds like iko uko kwa clouds, but when you're a musician, you're on set, your vibe and your energy drives everything. So if you're there, you're the artist, maybe you're performing, you're singing, and people are on edge and people can't do anything, and then there's something about you that's not proper, because it's a huge mantle. And when you get into that space whereby people are recognizing your work, it's actually even an act of humility. You need to actually be even more humble, so that people now are also able to pick and learn from you, because in the eyes of God, we are all equal. That's it for me. Maybe some remarks as we sign off.
I think also living from the place of conviction, as a lifestyle. What are your convictions? What do you believe? What are the things that you stand for? Not just what you stand against. What do you stand for? I think it's important to sit and clarify that as you step and as you evolve in the music space even. And understanding that God's mind is to redeem even that space. He's interested in that space. He has a mind for it. There's a way he would
absolutely.
And so, we are here. That's the idea of the conversation, is to help people see the aspects of redeeming these spaces that we find ourselves in. So.
And guys, pray. Entertainers, you guys need to pray. You're talking to multitudes of people. Pray so that you don't mislead people. Sitasema Mungu atakuchapa kiboko, lakini anaweza. You can't be misleading people. But as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. At heart and heart. Peace out.